Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Future Salespeople's Sales Round Robin. I'm Andrew Voislavic, and I'm joined by the one, the only, the illustrious Alex Guest.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking the time.
Today, this week, we really want to make sure that we're bringing the value to you, your sales organizations, and helping you do more for your team and for your customers. And this week, we're going to talk about features, benefits, and the things that you and your team likely forget about: value and impact. Guest, how excited are you? What are you thinking about?
I'm very excited. I totally agree. I think you hear a lot that salespeople should sell to benefits, not features, but we don't think that really goes far enough. And as we'll talk about here, neither does Gong.
Yeah. So what Gong actually showed and their ROI in sales is dead is that for most organizations, when they actually share and produce ROI information in a sales process, it actually negatively impacts their ability to win business. 27% drop in close rates, actually. And the reason we believe that organizations see such a drop once they introduce ROI into their sales process is they're doing it wrong. They're doing it wrong, Mr. Guest. They're missing two of the biggest pieces when it comes to producing ROI. Let's go ahead and introduce those sections too. Let's go ahead and advance it for me. So what we hear, what we typically see in sales conversations with our customers, those out in the ecosystem, is that most sales conversations stay at the feature benefit level, right? So features, something that a product does, right? And this is something that you should be able to figure out that is necessary based off your total addressable market and the problem solution of your product. Then most organizations go and sell to the benefit, what your feature actually improves for your total addressable market, for your customers. What most organizations miss, though, Alex, is they actually miss the value of the benefit. And then in addition to that, once they have that value, and this is kind of fun too, I want to circle back here a second. Then if they don't have the value, they can't actually talk about the impact of that benefit to that individual, to a function, to a team, to an organization, whatever it may be. But what's really interesting though is, and you'll get to this later in the presentation too, is we start with something that can be fairly broad and we get into specificity. And I think that's really exciting. And I know that's where you're going to be taking the conversation. Before we get there though, Alex, what do you have to share about the common language, common approach around features, benefits, and the missing value and impact for most organizations?
Yeah, you've got it, Andrew. And it's not only that honing or that funnel that occurs, but then there's also going to be this almost seesaw effect between accuracy and personalization. So a feature should be highly accurate. And by that, we mean it's highly accurate to your total addressable market, product market fit, the problem that you solve through your solution. But there's not really any personalization here. It's something that you do or you don't do. Then once you get all the way down to impact, it's almost the reverse of that. The statements that you might make around impact could have very low accuracy as it compares to how it applies to your total addressable market, but they should be highly personalized when it comes to the value that's building for an organization or a function at the organization or even an individual at the organization. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And I think examples are usually the best way to learn a little bit more about this. So we chose Slack, not because we have a relationship with them, but because they're probably the most ubiquitous tech platform outside of Gmail or Office 365. And if we start at that very high level, high accuracy, low personalization feature for for Slack, it's a chat platform for teams. And then if we start to think of that in context to an ideal customer profile, in this case, a sales team, we can start to hone that down into Slack provides faster internal communications for sales teams. So a little more accuracy, a little less accuracy because it's to a specific function and not every business that you could work with, but then also more personalization in that sales realm. Then a little bit further down, going into value, Slack drives 21% faster lead response time for sales teams. So really how much benefit or value that is being provided through the platform. And then finally, you get to the impact statement, or really in this case, the impact questions, because You want to make sure that you are discovering that the value statement is true, and then also the internal impact of that. You're not going to know once you talk to these organizations exactly what it is that it's going to drive. So you need to ask, so what would be the results if you had a 21% faster lead response time? You'd likely ask this to a sales manager, a sales leader, a sales operations person when you're selling Slack into the sales team, and they might not have the answer to that. So you want to make sure that you come with a statistic that is going to help them get there and help them prove ROI within their organization. So in this case, leads are 10 times more likely to engage if sales response time is under 5 minutes. So to Andrew's point, you can see how it starts to hone down here, becomes more and more specific. You start to see that teeter-totter, that seesaw action of accuracy versus personalization. And that's how you start to create these more distinct feature, benefit, value, and impact statements. Anything that you think I missed here, Andrew?
Ooh, the one thing, you mentioned you need to bring stats to the table, right? Or you can bring stats to the table. If you don't have stats, if you're still in that kind of building out your product and you're in your early sales stages, you can simply ask about what the value is. So I love bringing stats to stage if you know what you're trying to focus in on. If you're still early on trying to figure out your head from your tails, just asking about value to a IC, to function, to a role, or to a team or department or company would help. Same thing with impact. That's all I have to add, Alex.
You've got it. So we've talked a little bit about these different types of statements, feature, benefit, value, and impact statements, how you would go about creating them and honing them for your particular market, ICP, and multiple buyer personas. But then the use of them is probably why most organizations see a degradation in their closed won numbers. So helping you out with how to use these, we're just taking a basic sales process that we use as a background, or excuse me, a backbone to give you some background. So starting at awareness, going all the way to closed won, you're going to want to leverage features between those first 3 sales stages. And particularly, you want to use them as qualification criteria because your buyers are using them as qualification criteria. You need to make sure that what you have, they need, and that they want it. And if you don't have it, or if they don't want it, you're wasting your time trying to push them through the rest of that sales cycle and the rest of this feature, benefit, value, impact chain. When it comes to benefits, you use them in the same areas within your sales process. And this is where you're building interest, you're building momentum, and you want to use multiple benefit statements because that's going to help you diversify the types of value that you're building. It's going to bring more buyer personas to the table. And this is one of those things where it's more is more. The more benefits that you can provide, likely the more success you're going to have in those early engagement stages within a sales process.
Yep.
Value turns into this kind of middling point, and it really bridges things between feature, benefit, and impact. So when you're looking at value statements, you're really driving engagement and buy-in with a specific buyer persona. And most sales processes are going to include multiple buyer personas. So this is going to help you drive it forward with each one of those buyer personas. But along that way, you want to discover additional ways to provide value and confirm that those value points make sense to your buyer personas because they may not. It might be an individual thing, it might be an organizational thing, it might be something that they've already solved. So make sure that you are maintaining discovery in this. And then finally, when it comes to those impact statements, you can use them to drive continued investment in the sales cycle on both sides. So once you get those specific impact statements from your people, you can start to use those to drive next steps, to map the buyer process, to bring in additional buyer personas. You can leverage them in pricing and negotiation conversations. And they absolutely help when it comes to getting the deal done. But not all impact statements that you're going to get from your buyers are created equal. Some of them might be more personal impact statements or on an individual level. And you can leverage those to get somebody back on the phone when they haven't talked to you in a while. Maybe something like you knew that was going to drive them towards a promotion. You could leverage that or reference that in email to build value, to help remind them of the impact it was going to have, and then they'll give you a call back or respond to your email. You could also see organizational level impact statements, where those are going to be super helpful to get the deal done, to help with pricing and negotiation conversations, to expedite the deal closing within a week or a month or a specific quarter based off of what you were hearing in those impact statements. So really anything from a personal level to an individual, a team, a function, a whole organization, you want to make sure that you get not only the value of that impact, the depth of that impact, but then also the scope of it.
Nailed it. No, and I'm glad you brought it back down to getting the deal done and also helping you try to figure out what's next, what's missing with the impact statements, right? Helping you progress to that end, whether it's close one or close loss. Ideally close one. The one thing I would add too is securing budget, right? And I think it's kind of funny that these two, value and impact, really represents the latter half of the sales process, right? When you have more intimate conversations with your prospect, your potential buyer, you have more of that layer of trust already underneath it. The chances that you get to value impact conversations in your first call, unless you're in a super transactional sales process, not so high, right? So that's where that active listening, trying to show that you're putting the buyer first, is really going to help you. So you can get into those more sophisticated, more in-depth value and impact conversations to really set up both parties for mutual success.
Got it. Got it.
Well, what's next? Well, what's next is, it's coming back to driving value for both parties, right? And so one of the themes that we've been hearing more and more of is, how do I help my customers be more successful? How can I drive my revenue by helping my customers be more successful? And that's exactly what's on deck for us next week. It's driving revenue through customer enablement. We've heard of sales enablement. We've heard of buyer enablement. Let's go ahead and bring it home for customer enablement. That's what matters. 70% of all revenue comes from your customers. Let's enable them to do more and have more success with your company. Thanks so much, everybody. If you like what you're seeing, comment, like, subscribe. We really appreciate your time, energy, and effort. Mr. Guest?
Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it.
I love your finishes. Take care, everyone. Bye.